So I finished Ghost of Yotei, I even got that platinum trophy, and I put about 45 hours into the game. I enjoyed every moment of it. And I want to be clear and also share my honest review for this game. Now, I'll be honest, there are some few tidbits that there were positives, and yes, there were some negatives. In fact, I'll have plenty of other videos relating to the comparisons. I'm talking about Ghost of Yotei and Ghost of Tsushima, and including my experience or like an adventure, let's just say, of how I went and got that platinum trophy for Ghost of Yotei. So be sure to stick around on my YouTube channel and you will be receiving plenty more videos from me. Now, let's start from the strongest point of the game, I believe so. I'm talking about is the combat. I think it's the heart of the game, right? I think it's excellent. The systems are deep without being needlessly complicated. Parry timings, counters, and weapon choice matters in ways that make fights feel purposeful. The game gives you a broad toolkit, like katanas, the heavy odachi, spears, bows, and the kuserigama. And each weapon changes how you approach an encounter. Switching between them isn't cosmetic. It forces you to adapt. Enemy types are varied enough that you need to kind of read the patterns, punish the openings, and sometimes retreat to change the strategies. Boss battles are frequently the highlight. They are well designed, often tense, and demand a kind of attention that makes victory feel earned. Now, let's touch on regarding the progression systems, and it's just that the support of the combat loop that it also provides. Upgrades, new techniques, and gear just feels meaningful. You aren't just collecting numbers. New moves open up combat options and encourage you to kind of experiment. I spent time building loadouts for stealth, open fights, boss duels, and each felt worthwhile. And the Platinum run also rewarded knowledge, mastering challenges, nailing specific trophies, and playing through harder encounters showing the system's resilience. If you enjoyed improving your mechanical play and optimizing builds, the game gives you room to do that without turning it into a confusing mess. And visually the game is absolutely stunning. Environments ranges from snowy peaks to dense forests and small coastal settlements. Lighting and particle effects and the weather all contribute to a living, breathing world. I stop frequently just to look at the light on the snow or the way the fog rolled through the valley. They're not empty set pieces, they kind of invite you to explore. And exploration often actually pays off as well, with interesting micro stories, gear, or just atmospheric moments. Sound design and the music support just provides that atmosphere. Like sword hits land with the weight, environmental sound feels layered, and the score helps set both quiet and violent scenes. I absolutely adore the soundtrack in this game. The open world is large, right, and rewarding in many of the places. There are shrines, challenges, collectibles, and small side stories that sometimes surprises you with meaningful scenes or character moments. Traversal is smooth and loading times are absolutely they're not there basically. You boot up the game, you're practically immediately in it. It's incredible. The game offers a variety of activities and optional content that can be legitimately fun rather than pure filler, right? I appreciated the design choices and it helped the playtime feel substantial rather than artificially stretched out. Now that said, the game also has clear weaknesses. The biggest of these is the story predictability. The revenge narrative is serviceable and occasionally, powerful, but it is rarely surprising. The arc is straightforward, you hunt, confront, and resolve. That structure works for what it is, but by the time I hit the later acts, I could just usually see where plot beats were headed. This predictability doesn't ruin the experience, but it does blunt the emotional impact of certain revelations. If you play primarily for narrative twists or deep layered storytelling, you may feel underwhelmed. And another recurring problem is the dialogue and character animations during the conversations. Several cutscenes feature kind of stilted line delivery and awkward facial or body animations, when the rest of the game looks so polished. These moments just really stand out. Conversations sometimes feel flat because the timing and the expressions don't fully sell the words. And that disconnect is frustrating in a game that otherwise takes great care with presentation. Now, it's not that voice acting is bad, it really isn't in fact, but the delivery and the visual performance sometimes fails to match the intention. These stilted scenes make certain characters' moments feel like a missed opportunity. And now I definitely see where they kind of cut the corners and why they were capable of crafting this game in such a short amount of time from the release of Ghost of Tsushima Iki Island DLC, because they needed less time to develop this game, and for the amount of the budget that they required was almost the same as it was for Ghost of Tsushima. And because of this, I feel like they did not put enough time and effort into these issues, such as the story, such as the dialogue, and the kind of weird character animations during the conversations. Now, side content shows both of the game's strengths and limits. Many side quests are well crafted and character focused, which I definitely appreciated. But a fair amount of the activities rely on repeating layouts or similar objectives: clear a camp, hunt wildlife, or retrieve an item. Over the course of 45 hours, that repetition became noticeable. And the variety of the world masks this for a while, but after many sessions you can start to feel the checklist nature of some tasks. That repetition is amplified by the fact that some of the enemy camps reuse the same tactical setups. The best moments are when the design mixes a strong set pieces or a unique character beat into the side loop. Those hit hard. The filler, well, less so. Now, on the technical side, the game is absolutely solid. Performance is fantastic, and the PlayStation 5 Pro and just or even standard PlayStation 5 features are used well. Haptics and the sound design add to the immersion. The load speeds, like mentioned, are absolutely excellent, and there are a handful of camera hiccups in the cramped fights and some UI friction when juggling inventory and tool steps, but they're not big deals, at least not to me. Now, there was also a little touch on, I want to mention that the inventory or the main navigation could be a little more clear. Look, I understood nevertheless after like 20 hours of playtime, like I knew everything how it went, but it wasn't as simple as, okay, I understand what I need to do from like an hour or 2 hours into the game. But again, this is not an issue. The frustration I had when I wanted to have a specific perk or an ability, or as an example, I wanted to parry a gunshot. And as such, you actually had to go to the menu and set these things up. And it got kind of frustrating because I constantly had to go back and forth doing this. It just felt, I don't know, cumbersome. Now, there were occasional minor bugs or clipping moments, but again, nothing broke the game for me or even prevented the progress, or it never spoiled my fun. Now, pacing is also a bit of a mixed bag, I believe. The game nails pacing and mission structure more often than not, with good alternations between the intense fights and the quieter explorations. Now, however, some chapters sag with too many similar objectives in a row, which slows the momentum. Again, the world design often redeems this. A great environment can make repetitive objectives less tiring, but pacing dips happens, and they're worth noting. Now, so where does this leave with the whole experience? For me, the positives completely outweigh the negatives. Combat depth, weapon variety, confident progression, and a breathtaking presentation all combine to deliver a memorable action package. The world rewards curiosity, and the Platinum Trophy run added a satisfying layer of mastery and completion. If you enjoy precise melee combat and open world exploration, this game definitely will give you both of the spades. But unfortunately, there are some downsides, as already mentioned a little bit. A predictable story, stilted dialogue and conversational animations, some repetitive side activities, and occasional UI camera stuff. A little confusion can be going on there. Keep the title from being just a complete masterpiece due to this, but they do not, however, stop it from being highly recommendable. The game doesn't reinvent the genre, but it refines and polishes many of its best parts. Now, if you're that kind of a player who values combat systems and world crafting over constantly surprising narratives, you'll likely find Ghost of Yotei both satisfying and fun. If you need every character moment to land and want a story that continually surprises, beware this one leans on a tried and true beats. Now, in short, I had a fantastic time across my 45 hours of playtime with Ghost of Yotei, and that platinum trophy definitely felt earned. And one another thing to mention, I definitely will be coming back to this game for the New Game Plus, for the future DLCs if there would be, and of course, Ghost of Yotei Legends. The game's craftsmanship is genuinely impressive. The combat is fantastic and rewarding, and the world is joy to inhabit. And just don't expect a story that will constantly shock you, and be prepared for the occasional awkward conversational scenes. For me, those flaws were real, but not deal breakers. The strengths definitely carried the whole experience for me. But nevertheless, guys, do let me know down in the comments, have you already played or at least tried out Ghost of Yotei? Perhaps maybe you're considering getting it sometime in the future. But yeah, this was a fantastic experience. I absolutely love this game. At that, like and subscribe. See you guys all, and have a wonderful day.